Okay, so because this isn't an intellectual understanding, it's not like, let me just teach you some information and then you'll get it. It's something that's beyond the intellect. There is a spiritual nature to understanding the principles, but people want to see it in their own life. So the question is, how do you show someone to see the principles? How do you help them realize the principles based on what's going on in their own life? I think the main factor that's different about a principles practitioner than maybe a traditional therapist is probably the glasses that I have on in terms of where I'm looking. I'm looking for people's, where they might be lost in a misunderstanding, where they might innocently be not seeing thought as thought, where they might innocently be blaming something for their experience that they don't realize that that's what they're doing. And I'm looking to kind of just help show them that. Help, because I trust that as they wake up to the misunderstanding, their system is perfect and they'll get the insight that they need if they're meant to see something. And I also completely trust that people are exactly where they're supposed to be, and but for their thinking that they should be someplace else, they should be doing it better, they should be using thought better because they've been learning this or something, but for that thought, they're exactly where they need to be. And if they weren't innocently doing that, they probably wouldn't be living in distress, you know? So the fact that I have a belief and a trust that you're totally okay, no matter what you're going through, no matter what you've been through in your life, I'm listening from that place. So I'm not listening from that there's a problem here that I need to fix. I'm not listening from what do I need to teach you because I have an agenda. I'm listening for how are you seeing your life? How are you seeing where your experience is coming from? And how can I point you in a direction that you'll start to insightfully see that maybe that's not where it's coming from? And as people start to wake up to, oh, there's thought coming through the system that I didn't even know. Like, their first step is kind of waking up to that. Like, I didn't know my feelings were coming from thought, or they thought it was coming from thought and someone else, thought and what that person said. But they start waking up to the separate realities of how we really do live, which is everyone has their direct connection and they're living in their world of thought. And that's the only way I can have an experience. So the false belief is that someone has the power to create, to enter my bubble, so to speak, and like shoot arrows and hurt me. But the truth is they can't, because they can't create an experience inside me. Only if I think their arrows are coming in and hurting me can they hurt me. So my eyes are on, where are you kind of misunderstanding that people live in separate realities? Where are you innocently blaming something else for your experience? And so as they start to see that for themselves, like I said, I think the next point is people start waking up that they're living in a tremendous amount of thought. I think then people start waking up to all the thought I'm living in is not true, but it looks true because that's the design of the system. That's what gives us free will. If it didn't look true, it'd be easy to kind of ignore. And when I wake up to that it's not necessarily so true, there's a shift that starts happening in the way people relate to their thinking. And they end up seeing that that's where the money's at. That's where their transformation is going to happen. It's not going to be in their thinking. Their thinking is not the problem. So spending all that time changing it, controlling it, managing it, which is kind of what a lot of psychology today is out there trying to do, when they kind of get that's not where the money's at. That's not even what's creating your experience. It's your relationship to it. There's thought in the moment coming in, making this all mean something, and it creates a tremendous amount of turmoil and distress and upset. So when my relationship to this shifts, my whole experience of this shifts. So I might still get hit with anxiety, I might still get hit with depression, or I might still get hit with upset, the same way I'll get hit with gratitude and compassion and forgiveness, but it's my relationship to it that's going to make it more intense or less intense. And if I kind of get, the system is designed that this flows. I don't have to make this mean anything about me. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It doesn't mean I have bad character traits. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with me. It just means that, wow, a flow's coming through that's giving me an experience that I don't really like right now. But ultimately, as people start waking up to that, they shift their relationship to their thinking, and their experience of life gets easier and more graceful and nicer, even though their circumstances never change. And sometimes in the face of that, as they're kind of doing life better, circumstances sometimes change.
Give me. I want to ask you one quick question.
Yeah.
But then I want to make sure we're covering the things we're going, because this is all great, but I know you have a lot of stuff that you wanted to get to. I was saying, start off the sentence with this, like, people need, and then go from there. Use the principles, I guess, as the guide.
Okay.
I'm going to use the bathroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll pretend you're there. Smiling away at me.
It's just imprinted right there. You left it there.
Okay. People need to know that they're emotionally, mentally, psychologically healthy right now, no matter what they're going through. People need to know that they're okay no matter what, and that they're not their thinking. Now, again, that's kind of my opinion, that people need to know that, because I guess the truth is people don't need anything. That's, my verbiage of it. I think that it's helpful if people know this. Kind of once you put like a need on it, there's that sense of like, oh, and they're not okay if they don't, if they don't have it. It's do you know what I mean by that?
Honestly, when you said that first sentence, I totally felt a wave of like
relief.
Yeah, totally.
Which is kind of what I think people. I don't know if I should re-say it then, but
no, I think it was very good. It was really nice.
And that is what happens for people, because like you come in with all of this thinking about yourself, all this self-concept and self-constructs of who you are and who you're not, and you live in that, and then you wonder why you're in so much pain. So on some level, when you're given permission to just be, like, you're fine, drop all the concepts and all the constructs and all the things you think you are, you're not who you think you are. Because your thinking isn't necessarily true, right? It's jaded on some level. It's like looking out the window and you're seeing through all this dust and you just don't know it. Well, if you were to drop all that, then yeah, this huge wave of relief would come over you and you'd have a sense of peace and you'd be aligned with your health.
Yeah, because as soon as I make the statements, I think I am. I'm
already not.
I'm already not.
Right.
I'm starting to make pieces, but essentially, because you're saying that when you drop that and you stop that thinking and you get to that place of being, we're all the same and we're all God. Kind of sounds like you're saying.
Well, we're all, it's funny that you say that, because it's so interesting, because so many people in the principles world will say that. Mm-hmm. So, I just personally, my own religious beliefs, like I haven't, mm-hmm. I definitely feel we're a piece of God, for sure. We have a Tzelem Elohim, there's no question about that. But there is this sense of, sometimes I was just on a webinar yesterday and I was listening to them and I'm like, it's just so subtle how thought comes in and people think that it's not thought. And they're, saying certain things because it sounds so spiritual and it sounds so egoless and it sounds so like, someone yesterday made some sort of comment, this is not for a video, but someone made some sort of comment like, and I kind of had this idea to pray to God, and then I realized that there is no external God, there's only one, which is true, there's one, but it's like the implication of what he was saying was like, so we're all God. And I was kind of like, okay, so that's my judgment on the fact that what you're saying is completely right. off. But from their perspective, it was like being aligned with more, whatever. It has, in the end of the day, the principles are not telling you what to think or what not to think. Mm-hmm. People are just using the principles to experience life however they do it. And I definitely feel like I am beyond grateful that I have the Torah to tell me there's guidelines. Because without guidelines, it could be a free-for-all with everything. And they're, but my goal with people is to help them get out of their right and wrong thinking. Because when I'm dealing with a religious community, they're so bought into that judgment because there is this sense of truth and right and wrong. And it innocently gets carried over into so many areas of their life where it's so not relevant and it's creating so much distress and pain that you kind of have to help them separate. Like, we're not talking about right or wrong here. We're just talking about an experience. I'm not putting judgment on it. And if I'm innocently putting a lot of judgment and expectation on it, then I get to live in that feeling and then kind of innocently blame you for judging me. Well, that's not what's going on. But it, it takes a bit of time for someone to sort of see that.
Yeah, I remember when I was at Ish, that was like a very big concept. Well, if this is true, then that's false, and this one says that, so then that one must be false. But then you kind of get to this point of embracing where like, you know, you have all these different opinions, but they're all different paths, and you can still see where the path leads you, and it can still be a very beautiful place, and it can still lead to the answer that you're looking for, and it could all be true. Just like rather than judging,
Right.
is it true, is it wrong right now? Just like go down the path a little bit. You know, you're not going to fall off anyway.
Right. And the principles are saying, and whatever path you go down, you will experience it via thought.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, a lot of times people are like, oh, are you saying this? Are you saying mindfulness? Are you saying, you know, like, and they're like looking to like box it into. It's so funny because I came to the principles after the forum, and we had spent a full year doing the forum. And when I came to the principles, it was like, it's so natural to want to like compartmentalize and be like, oh, well, this is this and this is that. And it took a while to kind of stop doing that. And then I remember I was out in Seattle doing an intensive, and these two guys had come out there who had just come off the forum, and they were coming out of their intensive while I was like, you know, and I was like listening to them be like, oh, this is like the racket. This is like letting go of your racket. It was like all the lingo, you know? And it was like, wow, it'd be so nice for them when they realize, like, no, don't, we're not trying to compare or contrast. Like, that's more staying in what you know, and this is kind of more about getting out of what you know. Like, when you stay in what you know, you're already limited and boxed in, and we're kind of like, well, there's a source that's coming through to always give you something fresh. Like, why would you want to stay in what you know? There's something new always available.
There's something I really want to touch on, and you just shared a few words on it, but it's